to this meeting. This is a very important meeting. I will not be making any major news, Ozzy, today, unfortunately for you. But I really was excited to come here for several reasons. First of all, because I have a bond. I feel a very strong bond with this club. I represented parts of Riverdale for 2 years before I was redistricted out. And during those 2 years, I was able to forge a very good working relationship with the leadership of the club, Assemblyman Dinowitz, Oliver Capel, who was the council member back then, and of course now with Andy Cohen and the district leaders, you know, Randy and Bruce and the state committee people, Bill and Helen, and the leadership of this club. But most importantly, I met many good friends here as I campaigned and as I represented this district for 2 years. And now I'm before you to talk about my vision for parts of this district. Visions not only that pertain to my position as a senator in the New York State Senate, but also national issues that I think are very relevant and important to this particular district and the entire district, our 13th congressional district, which is a very diverse district. And I very often tell folks, you know, back in Washington Heights or in Harlem or East Harlem, you want to know how large this district is? It goes all the way up to Meshulah Parkway. And not many people know where Meshulah Parkway is. Some people think it's in Mount Vernon or something. But in fact, it's up here.
Where's Mount Vernon?
Mount Vernon. Some people think Mount Vernon is in Canada, but I won't know.
It's in Washington. It's in the 16th.
So this is a very diverse district. And I think that the diversity that it has is definitely a strength. And so you have folks in East Harlem that live in NYCHA housing, that need critical help. And we all seen in the daily news and in other papers and in the media the state of public housing in East Harlem and across the city of New York. The fact that people have to wait as long as a year to get a violation repair in their apartment. The fact that no major improvements have come to many of those housing developments for decades. And so this is a critical need, not just for the Marble Hill houses, which are right down the road, but for the district, particularly for East Harlem, which has the largest housing stock of public housing, perhaps in the entire country. And so this is a very unique issue affecting that particular neighborhood. And then you have the issues in Harlem, where people are being priced out. Well, people that lived there for many generations, their kids, their grandkids, their great-grandkids were there, and now they can't find to make ends meet, and they're being priced out. And you know, when you heard Mayor de Blasio speak about income inequality, I think that's what he was referring to. The fact that many people cannot even bring food to the table. They have very low-paying jobs. The rent is certainly higher. In many instances, in many neighborhoods, in many streets, you have condos and co-ops going up, and people can't make ends meet. So I think income inequality and the fact that many people are living Harlem and exiting Harlem to other neighborhoods is a real unique problem and issue for that particular neighborhood. And then you come up, you know, further north, and you hit Hamilton Heights and Washington Heights and Inwood, and you have immigrants there, people that are working very hard to be part of the mainstream of America. You know, dreamers, young people that went to high school here in New York State and are now looking to enter college but find it impossible to pay tuition and access that American dream. And that's a particular issue that affects that neighborhood. In addition to housing, that housing stock there, it's one that is primarily, I would say over 90% are privately owned buildings, rent-stabilized buildings, subject to market values. And so the market values often impact the rent, and people are always forced out to move into other neighborhoods. And then you have Kingsbridge right here, and you have the part of the Bronx, which traditionally was not part of that congressional district. It was redistricted in several years ago, 2 years ago, when we had redistricting, and it's the new part of the district. I think that this neighborhood, for example, needs a district office right here and now. People should not have to face the inconvenience, if you may, of having to travel very far to get to their legislator, to bring their needs to that particular representative so they can be addressed. I think that's a very important need, as well as quality of life issues. I remember when I ran for Senate here, you know, I said to myself, well, you know, this is a new neighborhood. I spoke to Dinowitz. I said, I want to get my hands in the issues that are impacting the community. You know what was one of the primary issues that came up, believe it or not? People wanted a real supermarket here. And they felt that they didn't have choices here. And many felt that they needed a place where they could go closer that would offer the type of products that they wanted. And they felt that wasn't available here. But also a new library which was put up by the former council member right down the street. That was also one of the needs of this particular district. And you have very specific needs that should be handled on a one-to-one basis. I believe that this district is very diverse, and they have very, very diverse issues. And therefore, we should have a vision that encompasses all of those neighborhoods. And I think that's the strength of the district. And so the Bronx, because it's a new sort of like child in the family of the 13th Congressional District, should not be left behind. I think it's an important part of the district. I think it brings with it a lot of talent. It brings with it institutions like Lehman College and other great institutions. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the northern part of the west part of the Bronx, which I represented for 2 years, but it's one that has a lot of resources and a lot of talent to bring to the table. So I'm willing to work with every neighborhood, every specific neighborhood, not just in the esoteric philosophical issues that we may be able to address, but the day-to-day issues that impact families within that district. And certainly, most certainly, establishing a district office right here in the Bronx should be a priority, and we haven't had that. So, you know, this is something that should be top at the list. You should be able to feel comfortable that you're going to walk or take the bus or the train to your representative and be able to address, bring the needs that you have and have those needs addressed by that particular person. With regards to Washington, we all know what's happening there. You know, immigration reform has not been taken care of. It looks like it's going to be kicked down the road, and yet we have the states. Many of the states are now forced to take up some of the issues that the federal government should have taken up with regards to immigration reform. So we certainly need comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship. At the very least, the Dreamers should be addressed, and those opportunities must be given to those young people that want to access college, want to be part of the mainstream, want to be part of the next middle class, and want to contribute to our tax base. With regards to the state of Israel, and this is something that I know is very dear and near to many of you, I would hope in the future to work very closely with Congressman Engel, who I know is the ranker in the Foreign Affairs Committee, and he has a very strong position with regards to the security of Israel. I visited Israel several times, and I can tell you that things have shifted there. From the first time when I went many years ago, when I just got elected to the assembly, and I saw the kind of insecurity that was in the country, to the very recent trip that I took maybe about a year and a half ago, where clearly there's no question about the fact that Iran continues to be the biggest threat to the security of Israel. And we should do everything that we can do to ensure that Iran doesn't acquire nuclear capability. You know, it's very messy there. There's fights between Fatah and Hamas and Hezbollah up by Lebanon and all these different terrorist groups that are very violent, and Israel is right in the middle. And Israel continues to be one of our strongest supporters. So I will be continuing, I will be following the lead of Congressman Engel in pushing for a very strong policy in supporting the sovereignty and the safety of the state of Israel. And that is something that I know is very dear to many of you in the audience, and you can count on my support with that particular issue. Thank you so much for inviting me to this meeting.